Hey guys, welcome back to another What If Hit, and today we are doing What If Team 7 Changed Genders Part 1 Redo. And the reason why I'm redoing it is because I somewhat thought, in my opinion, that I'd somewhat made maybe them, or more so Naruto, somewhat a bit like kind of uncanny smart for almost no particular reason, or at least that's the vibe I got from part 3. Yeah, part 3. So I thought I'd somewhat redo it, and of course ask you guys this question, though please answer when you've watched it, the entire thing, because your opinion can change. You may go, oh yeah, I like the the redo, say 10 or so minutes in, and then by the end of it you can go, yeah, no, never mind, I don't like it, prefer the original one. So please, tell me at the end of this, what if, do you guys prefer this one or the redo version this version or the original one? So yes, so let's get into it. So when we're Naruto, or not Naruto, too used to it being just Naruto, not Team 7. So when would Team 7 change genders, flip genders? Well, it'd be after Naruto and Jiraiya fed Tsunade. So yes, Team 7 would have obviously. So Sasuke has the curse mark. Well, yeah, just having up until said point in time, would be somewhat go down as in canon. It'd be maybe a week or so after Tsunade had come back into to Konoha to be the Hokage, as she'd, or at least somewhat Shizune had been going through and telling obviously Tsunade what she'd found and that through just the files and that, making sure all laws were correct and official and not signed like fake signed in or that. And any unsigned laws would be read through, and all laws would be read through, and make sure it's not obviously given, say, the council or whatever too much power. So yes, that, and going through the Genin team 7, 8 and 10s, and guys team, because they're Genin, and all the other possibly Genin teams that are still in, operating in Konoha, going through like the mission record, and also their somewhat just personal stats to make sure, having like the team is functioning correctly, and would go through all the reports from the first report to the latest one, and she'd somewhat was going through until and she was somewhat, though of course, and though teams 7, 8 and 10 being somewhat gaining had been stated to stay in Konoha and only do D ranks, and that they weren't permitted to go outside the village, so doing C, B and A rank missions, they weren't obviously allowed to do those for the somewhat time being, as they read through the reports to make sure the team is functional, because if it's not, well, team more than likely will be disbanded, or at least or maybe a new sensei will come in somewhat to replace the original one. Yeah, or at least should give a scolding to said sensei for say like not doing anything to correct the the unbalanced, and though both Shizune and Tsunade new Team 7 would be unbalanced anyway, with Sasuke, and Sasuke being the last Uchiha and Naruto, well, having just having the 9,000 inside of him, so he's gonna have massive reserves. And yeah, to our knowledge, like a month to learn the Rasengan, told us somewhat that Naruto had decent chakra control, because you needed quite high chakra control to be able to properly perform it. And yes, whilst he did need, a second shadow clone, most people, even with enough chakra to perform a shadow clone, would have zero ability to still even perform the Rasengan. So yeah, it was it was more of a somewhat. It was just hard to do. Obviously, say perform the shadow clone, then say have you and your shadow clone somewhat control be able to control said chakra enough to get it spinning, and that in a way to obviously perform the Rasengan. Anyway, yeah, and that from there though, Naruto, though the mission, so she'd and Tsunade told obviously each somewhat sensei though they'd found recently a somewhat new cave and close to Konoha, and finding a new cave isn't all that uncommon. The oddity about it is that it's somewhat, or at least from what they've managed to gauge from how it formed, had meant that it was naturally always there, and for it to always be there meant that a genjutsu must have been over it. So she somewhat wanted to obviously send out some tuning or jonin, but they were off repairing the damage, and that done in the attack on the village. Yeah, which was still somewhat ongoing, though a majority of it was now complete, and they were obviously doing missions again, and that, well, they were all throughout that doing missions anyway. And yeah, and she'd somewhat sign some slight annoyance, as she'd have to call upon Team Soundbreak, the somewhat just break the rule or not exactly rule, but break what she'd said, to them, that they weren't not allowed to take any leave the village until she properly knows their team's abilities and that. And the only reason why I should be sending Team 7 anyway is because Kikashi's at A rank, mid to possibly somewhat high A rank Jonin, and and plus, or at least even in our case, also has Naruto, who can somewhat, confirmed by Jiraiya, can use a bit of the 9,000 chakra as well. So that was quite kind of comforting, slightly comforting to know that if it is somewhat dangerous, maybe at the very least Naruto could survive, and at the very somewhat worst, Naruto's maybe gone into an 8 or godforsaken, gone for 9 tails. That, or so she'd call up Team 7, and after a while they'd somewhat arrive with Naruto asking what's up, and Sakura would somewhat try and scold him, though Tsunade almost immediately, the second she'd seen, Sakura had somewhat turned around and was about to somewhat scold Naruto for how he spoke to Tsunade, though she'd immediately somewhat sent a glare at Sakura that immediately shut her up, or any attempt at trying to scold Naruto for improper speaking. Yeah. And then after something like that, just like glare at Sakura, she'd send those who'd somewhat go, would somewhat tell them that she'd be giving them a somewhat a mission somewhat that will be outside the village, thus it would be ranked C, though in general she said it would probably be nothing more than somewhat a D rank, though it is exploring a cave that has appeared out of nowhere. And Kakashi would go, so it's like a cave from like chakra manipulation. She'd go, no, it's apparently been there since whenever it formed. As Kakashi would blink, so it's natural then. She would just somewhat nod, and Kakashi would somewhat start realizing that she's sending them because they have maybe the highest chance of actually surviving the encounter, or at the very least, if Sasuke and Sakura don't, he presumes that Naruto, having the fox, would almost more than likely somewhat survive almost any encounter that they may encounter in the cave, and Naruto could always lose control of the fox and go somewhat nine tails, and and would still somewhat after maybe like 10, so it gets to him, pushes the chakra back in, and Naruto's is back, maybe alive, or if he is even alive, that then could obviously state what had happened, or up until my somewhat blanked out. Anyway, though, and after getting the details from Tsunade, though, she did say that she'd want them out of the village within 13 minutes. Though Kakashi nodded and had somewhat looked to them and stated that if they have everything, which they would just somewhat start him as Kakashi, then somewhat change that and tell them what they may need, and after that 25 minutes later, they'd all be at the front gates and would leave to the newly discovered cave. And the reason even how it is discovered was be somewhat just patrolling the wall just outside of the wall like they normally do, and had just come across it one day, and they checked the previous records on a cave in that area, and there was none, thus they reported it to the Hokage. Or maybe it was reported, but the old man Hiruzen never really cared somewhat much and always got rid of it, dismissing it. So though the Anbu did also ask the ones that went yesterday and the day before and the day before that, and they told the group that had spotted the cave that there was no cave there, and so yeah, they made somewhat sure they weren't seeing things to obviously then report it to the Hokage. And yeah, so they'd arrive at the cave and, well, yeah, somewhat minutes, 20, 30, 40, well, yeah, so 10, 15 minutes later after leaving the village, they'd arrive at the cave and would somewhat enter with Kakashi going first. And yeah, it would be almost an hour to an hour and a half, 2 hours later when they would somewhat finally come back out. And if you think, oh, that's a big cave, well, not quite. They'd somewhat passed out in the, well, yeah, somewhat once they'd reached the end of the cave, they had passed out. And they then regained consciousness, and had all somewhat waited for, while Kakashi had waited for them all to somewhat awake, because, well, or at least for him, he couldn't quite fill his chakra, or at the very least, he didn't have enough to create any amount of shadow clones, so he would have to somewhat, well, if Naruto got up next, then he would ask Naruto to make 2 shadow clones, and have one carry Sasuke, one carry Sakura, and get out into the daylight. But no, like normal, Naruto was the last one up, awake, and they then somewhat left. Once they reached the daylight, Kakashi had somewhat realised they'd been in there for almost an hour and a half, hour and 50 minutes almost. Well, yeah, and that's an hour and 30 odd minutes. And while he looked at himself, nothing seemed different. He quickly somewhat said, release, just making sure there was no genjutsu over them, and nothing happened. So there was none, or it was high enough that he'd have to use Sharingan, and not quite being able to fill his chakra. He wasn't quite sure, so he'd look over and would somewhat just ask Naruto if he could, say, dispel a decent amount of chakra to somewhat, like, possibly release any type of genjutsu they could possibly be under, as though Naruto would be confused and would ask why, as Kakashi would state that, well, he can't exactly fill his own chakra. Sasuke would somewhat agree with their sensei, stating that he doesn't as well, and Sakura would slightly get panicked, but would, also, somewhat, and Naruto would just look at them confused, as he could fill his chakra just fine. So, yeah, mate, and, yeah, so he was somewhat confused why, or though he then somewhat mused, maybe it was the fox, maybe Naruto would somewhat shut her a bit, but would, though, remember that the first experience talking to the fox, he practically just demanded its chakra, so he didn't quite think it would be quite happy to speak to him, but late than never to properly introduce oneself. He would somewhat look at them and go, "You can't feel your chakra, that's odd, Datapayo." As Kakashi would somewhat just go, well, oh yes, I agree with you, Naruto, that it is odd, and that, though, the more bigger question is how comes someone you're not affected, as Sakura would go, Sasuke, as Sasuke would somewhat grunt and would just tell Sakura to somewhat immediately shut up before she could finish, as he would simply say that he couldn't feel his chakra as well, so trying to attempt any ninjutsu would be deadly. He would die if he tries any without being able to have a proper sense of the amount of chakra he's got. And yeah, though Naruto somewhat just would close his eyes, would put his hands up to somewhat burst out a lot of chakra, and would feel for his chakra and would realise that whilst yes he could feel it, it did definitely felt slightly different. And though he could still feel the fox's chakra and would slightly tug at that, and though he would then, at tugging at the fox's chakra, it would somewhat respond as it normally did, or slightly did. When it responded, he could then properly feel his chakra again. So Naruto himself was slightly concerned, but his chakra didn't feel that much different. In fact, though he could somewhat feel that his chakra had been drained a bit, like maybe 90, 95, like he only felt him like he lost 5 or 10% or so from his mammoth reserves. So yeah, he'd close his eyes and he'd somewhat release, another somewhat 10% of his reserves, so it'd be around 85 to 80% chakra left. Though that amount of chakra could be just like, if there were obviously Anbu, obviously Black always their gun, so they would have almost most definitely felt the wave of chakra, though by the time it somewhat got to them, it was already barely somewhat sent. It was barely even somewhat register, being able to register the the chakra signature. I mean that the chakra was nearing its limit and how far it could expand outwards. And yeah, Kakashi would see the cave disappear in front of his eyes, and it was from Naruto just releasing, and he'd look at Naruto and he'd ask Naruto immediately how much chakra did he use, and Naruto would open up his eyes and would just go, I think 10% or so. And Kakashi would just go, I'm not sure, but it seems like the cave had disappeared as Sasuke, Sakura, and Naruto would turn around and the cave was no longer there. They would go over and they would walk right on top of where the entrance was, where it would start going down, and yeah, it was just normal flat ground again, like it once was, and they were just super confused what the frick happened. And yeah, so they would, though Kakashi would tell them that they should get back because they've been gone for almost 2 hours now, or literally somewhat dead. Well, somewhat 2 hours and 10 or so minutes now. So they would head off back to Konoha, and once they would they would enter and they would go to the office, and Kakashi would obviously tell them what had somewhat happened, and what, the report for the mission, and that what kind of happened at the end, and those should tell them to go to the hospital, now to someone have, check up though after someone complained though she'd look at Naruto and just state that he could would tell Naruto to stay here and the others can go. Yeah, Kakashi realised that she was doing that to make sure Naruto was that for Naruto it could be even more dangerous because he's got the fox, so if he can't properly gauge his reserves, which Kakashi realised it was probably stupid of him to assume yes Naruto may be able to fill his chakra, but he may have only been able to use that because he was drawing on a bit of the fox's chakra as well, which he was. Anytime he started pulling on the fox's chakra, his chakra would not exactly vanish, but he couldn't get a good gauge on how much it felt like he was running at maybe only 40% of his overall chakra, though secondly he pulled on a tiny bit of the fox's chakra, he could fill his entire network again, which, so once someone would leave, and Tsunade would tell the Ambu to leave though to go and fetch Shizune. A couple seconds later, and Shizune would somewhat be with them, and they would shut the door. Tsunade would go through a couple of hand signs, hand seals, and would place down a seal that would a sound suppression seal and a somewhat one-way barrier, see-through barrier, so they could see out but people can't see in. Once that was all up, she would somewhat go over and she would ask Naruto, he would ask Naruto some of the same things. So she got the report from Kakashi, but obviously Kakashi could only feel for what he had. Naruto had the fox, so he may feel obviously different. So Naruto would those should tell him that if everything goes. Those should state that if everything goes the same, just say that it went the same, and then tell me your report and say how you feel. Naruto would quickly state that Kakashi didn't leave anything out, though he would say that he also does, though he is. He'd say that he did feel somewhat strange, and that and that he could only somewhat get a reading of only 40% of his chakra, and that, but when he'd somewhat pulled a bit on the fox's chakra, he could fill his reserves again, his entire network, like he normally could. He could feel that he had around 90 to 95% of his chakra left. Tsunade would be somewhat concerned at what had drained that much chakra from Naruto, and did that happen to both Sasuke and Kakashi, and if so, then how on earth are they awake? Because 5 to 10% for Naruto is maybe say 50 or so percent for Kakashi. Maybe even higher, maybe 60 to 70%. Sasuke would be passed out from chakra exhaustion, and Sakura could very much be dead. So it was clear it was either 5% for Naruto, 60 for Kakashi, or either that, or it pulled 5% of everyone's chakra, 5 to 10% of everyone's chakra. Though, so she'd quickly somewhat put channel medical ninjutsu into her hands and would scan Naruto, and so would Shizune, to somewhat act as somewhat nice. So if, say, Tsunade obviously sees something not right in Naruto, and though Shizune doesn't, they'd get a third opinion, and if they see either what Tsunade saw or sees, or what Shizune didn't, then yeah, either way. Yeah. Though Naruto, for them, would seem just fine, though she'd somewhat tell Naruto to somewhat, though, well, yeah, to somewhat go home, but to come back tomorrow, and they would check him tomorrow, and that Naruto would nod, and the next day would roll around, and yeah, Naruto would wake up and wouldn't really feel different, though he could feel his chakra normal again, so he thought, maybe that's what a cold feels like. He was thinking, after all, he's never been ill, so how would he know what a cold would feel like, and what that may, or maybe some type of chakra illness, or that only, say, affects one's ability to sense their own chakra. And and he did somewhat have he did somewhat talk with the fox, though the only thing he managed to get out was somewhat an introduction before the fox just told him to leave him alone, and he didn't make much progress from that point onwards, so he did do what the fox wanted and left him alone. Though Naruto did state that he was only leaving him alone because that's what the fox wanted. He wanted to be alone. So, yeah. Though that somewhat had caught the fox somewhat off guard at, Naruto retorting, obviously saying that. Which just meant that if the fox tried stating that he had never once bothered to try and visit him, Naruto could just simply state that you wanted to be alone. You told me that to leave you alone, thus I did what you wanted me to do. Though Naruto probably wouldn't exactly remember that, so yeah. Give him a month or two and Naruto would probably be back trying to speak to the fox, maybe. Yeah, though he'd get up and he'd go, he'd somewhat stand in front of his mirror, and the person, he looked ish similar, like his hair was the same, sure it was somewhat flat and not spiky, which was somewhat odd for him. And he was wondering if though he also looked down and realised that no, the mirror wasn't playing tricks on him, so he'd put his hands together and shout release as a puff of smoke would erupt around him, as Naruto would think, because he'd had somewhat long flowing blonde hair, which he knew wasn't quite normal for him. He somewhat has done a couple of times before, had transformed during the night in his sleep into his Saxijutsu. It wasn't the strangest thing he'd woke up as. He's woken up as a stone, a kunai, a shuriken. even an animal before, and that was somewhat even more startling than an inanimate object. So, yeah. Anyway, yeah, though once the transformation went to release, he would somewhat still try to release again. His hair wasn't long. It was maybe down to the bottom of his neck. But yeah, and though of course some ways, yeah, he would, and well, yeah, he was somewhat sterile, of course, at his naked self. He'd gotten undressed, somewhat during the smoke, and it felt now definitely, or at least he felt more front heavy than usual. Yeah, though of course, still somewhat having smoke around him. Well, yeah, feeling somewhat front heavy, he'd somewhat look down and could barely make out two objects sticking out of his chest. So his hands would go up and would clamp on and would touch and would somewhat go down. He'd feel below and then could feel a curve and would realise he had breasts. And the next question was, as his hand would fly down to his legs, and while it was smooth, he could, though his middle finger was running up against definitely something, and well, yeah, there was definitely something there, where though his finger would somewhat go slightly in, though he didn't put much pressure on it because he was starting to feel weird, so he'd stop. And yeah, and he could only think that he'd become a gal, and once the smoke was all cleared, he was right. He'd put his hands up again and would shout release, but nothing would happen this time. He would stay the same, and he couldn't believe it. He was now a gal. Was this feeling? Was this what happened? Was he dreaming? He'd pinch himself and would slightly wince and would go, nope, he definitely wasn't dreaming. And it would then somewhat enter his mind and would he would shout at the fox if it was his doing, though the fox would look at Naruto and would just stare at him in confusion, as the fox would go, "You're a gal?" As Naruto would look back and go, "Well, from this morning, Databayo." And the fox, and though it would register him now to his mind that the fox had actually asked him if he was indeed a gal, which immediately told him that no, it wasn't the fox's doing. Because why would the fox, ask him? And there was, you could see the somewhat surprise in the fox. Heck, he could hear the surprise in the fox's voice, in its somewhat deepest voice, when it asked him in a somewhat shocked tone that he was a gal. And the fox would immediately be thinking back on, what could have caused Naruto's sudden gender swap. And he was, though generally obviously asleep, though he would look back through Naruto's memory and would realise that they'd somewhat they entered obviously a cave and had suddenly passed out, and yeah, and obviously he was already somewhat asleep, but yeah, he'd somewhat woken up afterwards due to Naruto tugging on a small bit of his chakra, and he, of course, though had somewhat agreed, in a somewhat way, a contract that he would let Naruto use a bit of his chakra because he was in Naruto's body, and plus it was only a small amount, so yeah, and he also knew it would also speed up the weakening of the seal, so double-edged sword it, yeah, for Naruto. And yeah, and we'd realise, and looking through Naruto's memories, yeah, you could, yeah, and he would then simply state that must have been what the cave did to him. Naruto would look at the fox, and would go, wait, and the fox would just stare at him and go, I'm sealed inside of you, brat. I can read through your memories. As Naruto go, oh. So it wasn't your doing for some type of payback, as the fox would start him and go, and what pay, and why on earth would I turn my Jinchuriki into a woman of all things? Naruto would shrug and go, I don't know, as I said, payback, because I demanded, your chakra, and, yeah, I just thought that it may have, that may have been, like, your way of retaliating, giving me payback, that if I wanted to use your chakra, or at least that because I demanded to use your chakra, that you'd somewhat turn me, into a woman too. I don't know, whatever women go through. As the fox would simply shrug and would simply state that was below him. Below him to do something like that. Though Naruto would be slightly confused on why it'd be below him, but would somewhat then ask, then how did he ever get payback on people? And Fox would look at him, as Naruto would state that when he felt angry or at the villagers, he did obviously pranks to get his, to retaliate. And yeah, and so how did the fox get out of his his madness, besides from, killing people? And the fox would simply state that it was, the fox would somewhat think about it and would generally state that he just slept a lot, or at least slept up until a somewhat point in time when a person had somewhat come and awoken him and forced him to attack the first Hokage, and that's why he, has hatred for the Uchihas, because it was them that enslaved them into, or forced them into attacking the first Hokage, where he had no issues somewhat with, if he left him alone, which Hashirama was doing. Hashirama may have known where Akuma was, the Nine-Tails Fox was, but he hadn't bothered to, come and collect him like he did the other, the other 7 tailed beasts. Yes, I know there's 9 of them. Kuruma obviously didn't go for, so that would leave 8, but Lee Sand already had Shikaku, the one tail, so he only had to capture 7 of the 9. And yeah, he may or may not have known where the 9 tails was. And yeah. And well, yeah, he didn't simply state that from that point onwards he'd already been somewhat sealed away, and had been sealed away for almost like 120, 130 years. And yeah, Naruto would somewhat look down, and the fox could feel somewhat some type of either regret, disappointment, anger, or something. And the fox was somewhat confused. Why was he feeling these emotions for him? He attacked the village. He killed his mum and his dad. Or more so, well, didn't exactly kill Minato, because Minato had already gave his life to the Shinigami. So yeah, he couldn't have killed Minato. Minato had sacrificed his life. Kushina, he gave a more merciful death, as Kushina was going to die either within a couple of hours due to the sheer lack of chakra, or would have died in a couple of years due to obviously her life force being massively depleted from having the fox ripped out of her, and obviously giving childbirth, though. Yeah, well, it would have been the childbirth that had obviously lowered her chakra to low levels, then fox being ripped out of her, which sent her chakra into a crazy network. Anyway, I ramble about randomest things. Yeah, anyway, yeah. Though they'd slightly talk for a bit longer before the fox would tell him to somewhat leave him be for now. And Naruto is somewhat weird, and would just ask him, he would ask how would he leave, and the fox would just somewhat sigh and force Naruto out. Though Naruto would realise that the fox, unlike last time, hadn't demanded him to leave him alone, and this time it said just to leave him alone for now, which meant for at least right now, for maybe the next day or two, he wanted to be left alone to think. But yeah, though the more important thing, though, quickly realised as he would open up his eyes and be staring at his now naked female form, quick realised was to throw on some clothes and get his ass over to Tsunade and to Albarchan, and to ask what the frick, why is he Gal, how did he transform, and yeah. So after quickly getting dressed, she now would be running on top of the buildings. The fox would get to the Hokage Tower, and would burst through going Barton. Something happened as she was just she was somewhat just reading, or at least the report that Shizun had sent in to Tsunade. Shizun was now at the hospital, as they'd somewhat called her in due to someone's gender changing overnight. Obviously that being Kakashi's, as Kakashi had woken up a lot earlier than Naruto's last game, Sakura. Yeah, she would stare at Naruto, and she could immediately see the outline of breasts and Naruto's non-spiky hair. those who immediately tell the ambushed to obviously somewhat leave when they were already in the process of leaving. And the reason why is because, well, they'd spotted Naruto was Naruto and knew that. Well, at least Naruto wouldn't barge into the Okage's office, transformed as a Garand. If he did, then he wouldn't be wearing his orange jumpsuit, which means something else more important had happened, and as such, they should leave. So, yes, they were already leaving. So, yeah, though once they'd left, she'd put the barriers up that she did yesterday, the day before, and she'd immediately went over and her activated jutsu, and well, yeah, now she'd look at Naruto and would ask if she could fill her chakra, and Naruto would state that he could fill his reserves without having to pull on like the fox's chakra. And yeah, and Tsunade would go and say this must have been whatever made you passed out in the cave must have obviously somehow like turned you into a girl, but delayed it for whatever reason. Naruto someone go, the fox Fox had a similar thing, and Tsunade would just stare at Naruto, and Naruto go, what? I thought it would be something the fox had done to me. She'd just stare at Naruto and would go, why? As Naruto would somewhat try and go pay back. I somewhat demanded chakra from the fox. I thought the fox may have just turned me into a woman to go through the life of a girl, whatever girls go through, and Tsunade would somewhat think of it, and well, the only thing that would possibly be painful besides from the monthly pains or period would also be childbirth, but that would be if Naruto ever finds a person he's interested in and has a child with them. So, but yeah. Anyway, though, from there, those should tell Naruto that now she's pretty much as a girl, and Naruto would look at her and go, what do you mean? Well, she'd sit and go, pretty much, you are like, well, I'm not going to say obviously like me, but you are like any normal born girl. You can have children. Then Naruto would blink and go, how exactly? I know. Well, yeah, and like you'd somewhat look at her confused and go, as Tsunade go, you don't know where children come from, do you, Naruto? As Naruto would somewhat shake his head as she'd somewhat sigh, though she did somewhat see Naruto as like, as a definitely family figure, as either a grandchild or no, not even a grandchild. She saw Naruto as, child somewhat. So she would somewhat she'd go over and sit on the couch in the office and register for Naruto to sit down as well. Once Naruto would, she would then explain how children are made. And yes, children are made. Anyway. And Naruto would blush heavily at the realization that when he was a boy, his thing his dick, he would, or at least would have gained the ability within whenever he'd start. What's it called? I forget what it's called now. Puberty. When they'd start puberty, it would have gained the ability to get hard, and that would have gone into what he now has, a vagina, and that the babies that I've seen come from between his legs. And yeah, and so now they would obviously tell him everything about periods and everything like that. And yeah, Naruto wasn't, well, yeah, aside from being heavily embarrassed, was yeah, wondering why on earth, or what in the cave could have caused this, because there wasn't nothing in the cave to his knowledge, and yeah. And even soon now, they'd realised that even the Ambu that originally found the cave and had entered it, but they didn't explore much of it. Yeah. And even they were the original genders weeks after, so why Team 7 of all people? Was it because they explored the entire thing? Or was it because Naruto had so much chakra that it triggered whatever happened as... Yeah, though... Yeah. Though... And... Yeah. I'm gonna leave this what if guys. So if you have enjoyed this, tell me in the comments down below. Obviously do tell me if you guys want this, part 2 of this somewhat redo of what if Naruto, what if Team 7 changed genders. And yeah. And guys, I hope you have a good day or night, depending on wherever you are, or whenever you watch this. And yeah, guys, stay safe and good. Bye.